boys and girls, for the last prediction for the playoffs. Got a little sidetracked for a day there from Ryan Kelly's spastic dance with Walker Howard. And I was meaning to do the Cincinnati, Alabama video yesterday, but better late than never, right? All right. So, getting right to it, I am JPC. I am the outlaw of college football, whether you like it or not. And this is the home of the Common Joe and Common Sally of the Know, even more so than all those media talking heads. All right. Now that we got all that chicanery out of the way, I would just like to say Alabama and Cincinnati is the epic matchup. The epic matchup of David versus Goliath. You have the 6-time out of 12 years national champions. They've won 6 out of 12, 18-time national champions. Alabama Crimson Tide, probably the epitome of college football. Whether people want to admit it or not, Alabama is the ultimate alpha dog in college football. Cincinnati, for the first time ever, a Power 5 team gets in the playoff. And they are matched up against the alpha dog of all alpha dogs. That being the Alabama Crimson Tide, it couldn't be more fitting than a movie made by Paramount or Lionheart or any of those movie companies. It's just so epic that you're waiting and on a bated breath that this is going to be another one of those Boise State versus Oklahoma type epic movie-like finishes, like from the Varsity Blues or some shit. But when you go back and forth on this, yes, Cincinnati has probably the best defensive back combination that could possibly pose a threat to Alabama's offensive prowess at wide receiver with Jamison Williams. And as we know, John Mechie is out for the rest of the season. But Alabama's wide receiver core is so deep in the fact there's been a lot of freshmen that have been held back from being on the field because of, let's say, behind-the-scenes stuff that they ain't been taken care of. This is their opportunity to shine. The Ja'Cory Brooks, the Holdens, the Ajee Halls. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but all those guys are getting a chance now to step up to the plate and make their mark and to come out of the shadows and to get out of the doghouse with Nick Saban, so to speak. But you have that Cincinnati team there that's shouldering the burden of the non-power 5 world. Those teams that have been left out of the playoffs so many years, the Boise States, the TCUs, when TCU was not a Power 5 conference or in a Power 5 conference. All those years that non-Power 5 teams have been excluded, they finally get a seat at the table. And the first time they get a seat at the table, they're saddled with the task of a movie-like atmosphere. A story made for the movies that you have to take on the most epic college football dynasty of all time. It couldn't be more fitting. Cincinnati has a great running game with Jerome Ford, and another epic storyline is Jerome Ford played for Alabama, and now he gets a chance to prove to Alabama that he should have been used more accordingly than he was. Jerome Ford should have been used more by Alabama in his estimation And he can prove it with this game against Alabama. Those defensive backs that are considered high NFL draft picks can prove themselves against the epitome of college football, the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's got all the makings of a great upset. Finally, the non-Power 5 teams get their chance. Finally, after all the Boise States and Central Floridas with the Disney World National Championships that they claimed, can finally get a seat at the table and finally prove themselves worthy by upsetting the biggest traditional powerhouse of college football. And you have Ridder, or Ritten, or whatever his name is, the Cincinnati quarterback that can actually prove himself against a decent SEC defense. Not a vintage Alabama defense, but nevertheless an SEC defense. This quarterback from Cincinnati that's been looking for accolades and looking for respect can finally get it in this game. All the signs point to an epic movie-like atmosphere. But can Cincinnati shoulder that burden with Alabama coming on, with Alabama getting healthy? They got 3 weeks to get healthy. Brian Robinson, the running game, Trey Sanders, all those running backs have a chance to get healthy. The offensive line banged up a little bit. Chance to get healthy. 3 weeks of hearing about how Cincinnati should be respected, how Cincinnati should be that team that takes out the Goliath in Alabama. Nick Saban is going to use that to his advantage. Sad to tell y'all that. He's going to use that as motivation, just like he did the yummy rat poison comment after the Georgia victory. He's going to use it against Cincinnati. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, I think they've run into a situation where it would have been more optimal for them to have made the Final Four in another year. Or they should have probably put Cincinnati number 3 and had them play Georgia. Michigan should have been the number 4 seed. Should have been Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati in a rematch from last year when Georgia had to sit 8 or 9 players and Georgia could prove that maybe they're a much better team. That would have been optimal matchups for the Cincinnati Bearcats. But it's not happening that way. They've got to come out and take out the epitome of college football. The movie storylines are just dripping and waiting for this upset to happen. But in the end, this ain't the movies. In the end, Cincinnati may play this game close, the first half, on into the middle part of the third quarter. I'm saying maybe the 8-minute mark of the third quarter. 2.5 quarters of showing that they are almost to that point where they belong, but not quite. And in the end, Alabama will pull away about the 8-minute mark of the third quarter. And in the end, it's not going to have a storybook ending for Cincinnati. But the fact it remains that Cincinnati did finally break through for the non-Power 5 conferences. They finally broke through for them. And if they can just play this game close for 3.5 quarters, or even 2.5 quarters, it'll set a precedence. And when we go to the 12-team playoff, they will get their chance regardless, in my opinion. But in the end, this isn't going to have a storybook ending, in my opinion. Alabama will pull away in the middle part of the third quarter, and Alabama will win this game 45-21. Now, You guys and gals tell me what you think. Drop your comments and your predictions in the comment section, of course. And as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and KMCA to all the other teams.